Okay, so just while we're getting everything set up, let's just say hello. So welcome to the live stream for the IELTS Grind. My name's Phil, and today what we're going to do is to talk about IELTS Task 1 writing. So just while I'm checking that everyone can hear me and can see me, if you're joining me in the chat, don't forget to say hello. Just chat away. And if you have any questions at any point, also don't forget you can ask me any questions that you have about IELTS writing or about anything else. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be looking at an essay that was submitted by one of our viewers, and we're going to go through that, and I'm going to talk about the band score that each part of the essay would get based on task achievement, CC, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and also grammar. Okay. So just if anyone would like to ask any questions at any time, if there's anything that I didn't say clearly or anything you couldn't read on the screen, then feel free to actually go ahead and ask the question. Now, don't forget, if you go to the description of this video, you can find the document that I'm actually working with. So we've gone ahead and we've shared it with you, and you can go ahead and look at that. Okay, so just while we're checking if everything is actually live, I'm just going to talk to myself for a while until I'm sure that everybody's here. So let's see how that's working now. Okay, so while we're waiting, we can have a look at the question that we've got today. So this is the question that Nazreen has actually submitted. So it's one that you probably might have seen already somewhere. So just while we're making sure that everything is live. Aha. So right, so this is a question. It says the table displays trends concerning the amounts of fast food consumed in Melbourne. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. You should write at least 150 words, and we have the information there. So it talks about 5 different types of food. We have hamburgers, fried chicken, salads, fried rice and noodles, and it gives us 3 different periods of time. We've got 2005, the present, which for me would be 2021. If I was taking this exam 5 years ago, it would have been 2016. That's what we mean by present here. And 2025. Now, before we actually look at Nazreen's essay, there's a few issues that we have with this question. Now, I've seen this one quite a lot online, and there's a bit of an issue. Firstly, the issue here is it talks about 5 major types of fast food eaten in Melbourne, and it says units. Okay, there's a bit of a sound, don't worry about that. It talks about units. Now, it's not very clear from the question submitted. Is that units per day, units per week, units per year? We don't know. In the real exam, in a real IELTS question, it would be very clear that these units would be perhaps in thousands, perhaps per year, per week. We don't have that information here. And the other thing is it's a bit illogical, because it talks about fast food. It mentions hamburgers, yes, Fried chicken, yes. Salads, not fast food. Fried rice, okay. Noodles, yes, it can be fast food. So the issue is it's not very logical. So it's clear to me that this is not an official IELTS writing task. So my advice to you is, if you are practicing, make sure that you actually use proper official IELTS material, as in one of the Cambridge books. We're up to Cambridge 15 now. These are much better because they're closer to what you're actually going to see in the exam. Okay, so we're going to get started pretty soon. If anyone is joining us in the chat today, don't forget to say hello, and when we're ready we can get started. So the more people we have, the more interaction we can have. So if you're joining us, don't forget to share this with a friend, and if anyone's studying the IELTS, they can join us. I had a conversation with one of my friends here in Taipei. He's a German guy and he's decided to take the IELTS. So I said, come and join the live stream, come and chat. So he will be joining us in the next few days, hopefully. And you can join us every single day this week. We're going to be doing a live stream either in the evening, or we'll be doing a live stream in the middle of the day. Now, our times are a little bit different. Michael and I, we're based in Taiwan. So for me, it's just after 7 o'clock. So if you're joining us, note down what the time is for you, because you will see me again on Wednesday and Friday at this time. And Michael will be doing an afternoon shift. Okay, so let's go through this bit by bit. So this is the question, and here is the sample answer that Nazrin gave to us. They submitted it. You can see, if you want to submit an essay for us to grade for free, we'll go do this on a live stream. You can look above me here and you can see the email address, corrections@theieltsgrind.com. Just send your emails there, your essays there, include the question, and Michael and I will be able to get back and grade that. So send us, so let's go back up to the model answer. So yes, send us your essays. Okay, so what we're going to do, because I'm stalling for time, I'm hoping more people will jump into the live chat and watch along. What we're going to do is go through this bit by bit. So there are 4 different marking criteria for IELTS Task 1. The first one, task achievement. This is how well did you answer the task? How well did you do everything you were asked to do? And the clue here is the information here. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. You should write at least 150 words. You've got to do all of those things in order to meet the criteria for task achievement, as well as other things. Now, if you go into the description of any video on the IELTS Grind YouTube channel, you will find links to the band score descriptors. So if I go into YouTube and oh look, all our favorite friends there, and we go into one of our videos, let's actually look at one of our last videos. You can see here in our description, if we go to that, you can find the band score descriptors. Okay, so this is all of the information you need to get the grade that you want for task 1. Okay, So I will put that into the chat so you can find that there. So what I've done is I've gone through this information: task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy for this essay, and I've given the score based on what is publicly available. Okay, so let's jump into that. So task achievement. So what I'm going to do the first time round is we'll read the entire essay, and then when we look at the other grading criteria, we won't read everything. We'll just concentrate on what was good and what could be improved. So the first part is the introduction, the introductory sentence. So Nazrin says, the given table provides information about the quantity of food eaten by the citizen of Melbourne. There are few items on the menu which include hamburgers, fried rice, noodles and chicken. In 2005, hamburgers were the most common among people, which was about 40 units. Hello there, we're just starting the class. You have joined at exactly the right time. We're going to be talking about this essay and correcting it together and talking about what's happening. Don't forget, if you have any questions, you can ask, and I will try and give you an answer as we go along. So we got to, although it has declined its popularity by 2 units in person present time, it is anticipated that. This is really good. Now, why have I highlighted it is anticipated that? If we go back to the question, we notice that the time period, this is change over time, it talks about 2005, the present day, which for us is 2021, and 2025. So this is what's happened in the past. This is what's happening now, and this is not what will happen in the future. It's what's predicted to happen. It's what's anticipated to happen. So Nazrin has done very well because he said it is anticipated that. It's clearly saying to the reader that I know this is a prediction. If Nazrin had said it will be this on its own, it's not really showing that they've understood the question. But by saying it is anticipated that, we know that Nazrin knows it's a prediction. That's really good. So it is anticipated that it will significantly soar by 12 units and reach 51 units in 2025, which is a massive amount in the given figure. Moreover, chicken holds the second position in the top preferred food items on the menu. Okay, so so far what Nazrin has done is picked out the 2 biggest trends, which is good because what you have to do, as it says here, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features. So we can see hamburgers, yes, it was always the top number in each column, and fried chicken, always the top number in each of the columns. So that's a really good thing. Let's look at the second body paragraph from the perspective of task achievement. How well did Nazrin actually answer the question? Although the salad was least preferred by the inhabitants of Melbourne, it is estimated that 45 units of this can be eaten by 2025. So I liked the fact, again, we had this phrase, is estimated that, is anticipated that, is estimated that. This is really good for this particular question because Nazrin is showing that they know it's a prediction. But here it's a little bit confusing. Although salad was least preferred by the inhabitants of Melbourne, what do they mean by this exactly? Now, as an English teacher, I can understand everything that you have to say. So if you can hear some music in the background, don't worry, It's just the rubbish truck. They're coming to pick up the rubbish, and we have this classical music that plays. It's a little bit hot in my room, so the window's open. Don't worry, it will stop at some point. If you can't hear me, just tell me in the chat. So, yeah, the problem with this, the least preferred by the inhabitants of Melbourne, it's not very clear, so it takes away from, do we know if the writer understands the question or not? And if we carry on, it's a little bit louder now. In contrast, a similar amount of noodles and fried rice have eaten in 2005 and 2025. Now, okay, I'm just going to try and close my window. Okay, so let me get myself sorted out again. I might have to restart my camera, unfortunately. Okay, so a little interruption from the rubbish truck there. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, so overall, it's missed a little bit with those sentences. Have eaten in 2005, 2025. It's not very clear what's being said here, so it's taking away from the overall progression of this particular paragraph. If we look at the last paragraph, the overview, overall it is vividly seen from the provided table that hamburgers and chicken have grabbed a vast majority of consumers and also eaten in excess by them, whereas fried rice and noodles are least craved by the citizens of Melbourne in the given duration of time. So this is actually really good, because what Nazrin has done here, as they've gone and selected the main features. Hamburgers and chickens were consumed the most, but fried rice and noodles were consumed the least. So this is a really good paragraph, and because Nazrin has written overall as an overview, they've immediately not fallen into the trap of not writing a clear overview. If you don't write a clear overview, you cannot get higher than a band score 5. So because Nazrin, if we have a look, because they address the requirements of the task to a certain extent, they present an overview with information appropriately selected, and they present and adequately highlights key features, bullet points, etc. I'm quite confident to give Nazrin a band 6 here. I think this is, the overall message was pretty good. They definitely understood the task. Hello D-Docs, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us. Okay, so that's task achievement. Let's move on and talk about the coherence and cohesion. Okay, so remember, we are looking at this task. You may know this one, you may have seen it somewhere. It's about fast food in Melbourne, Australia. But we're moving on to talk about coherence and cohesion now. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is to see how well do the ideas fit together and how easy is it to follow what's being said. This is what you need to do in order to get a good score in coherence and cohesion. Okay, so I won't read everything again, but the introduction is good. It does what it needs to do. Nazrin introduces what the data is about, the context. The given table provides information about the quantity of food eaten by citizens of Melbourne. That's good. And they also introduce the idea that there are different types of food. Moving on, the good things that Nazrin does in the body paragraph 1 is the first phrase, in 2005. This is really good. It makes it very clear what we're talking about. It's the first column of the table. That's excellent. The rest of the sentence, it could be improved. So in 2005, hamburgers were the most common among people, which was about 40 units. Now, I know what Nazarene is trying to say, because English teachers, we have a superpower. We understand everything you say, even if you make a lot of mistakes. It's just what we're trained to do. But the examiner is always pretending to be a normal native speaker, and normal native speakers will not understand you when you make a lot of mistakes. They are incredibly stupid. You need to tell them everything, otherwise they won't understand. So this sentence, the most common among people, which was about 40 units, the most common what? The most common fast food among people, the most common food eaten by people. We need to say what we're talking about. We need to say hamburger is the fast food, and we're referring back to what is in the information. So that could be improved. Moving on. So although, this is good, we're introducing a bit of contrast. It really helps. It says, although it has declined in its popularity by 2 units. Now, in person present time, this is very confusing. Now, I know that Nazarene is referring to the present time, but I think this is just a typo. They've put in person. It doesn't make sense here. So it's taking away from the coherence. Soared by 12 units and reached 51 units in 2025. Really good. Lots of information, easy to follow, which is a massive amount in the given figure. Now, this sentence grammatically is perfect. It's a relative clause. We're adding information with which, but with task 1, when you're in the introduction, talk about where the data comes from. When you're in the body, forget about the fact you're looking at a table, okay? In the introduction, you can say where the information comes from. The rest of the essay, you should imagine that the examiner cannot see the table or the data, whatever it is, bar chart, line graph, and you describe it as if you're just talking about the data, not where the data comes from. It's not a big problem, but it's just something you should avoid. So grammatically correct, but not good for this part. And the last sentence in that paragraph, really good, because it introduces more data and it follows on logically and easily. That's really good. Okay. Moving on to body paragraph 2. Although the salad was least preferred by the inhabitants of Melbourne, it's a little bit difficult to understand. Although salad was the least preferred food by the inhabitants of Melbourne. So again, we need to be very clear what we're talking about. We're talking about food here. So let's say it. And the rest of that paragraph is really good. It is estimated that 45 units of this can be eaten by 2025. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's following on from everything we're saying. In contrast, really good. In contrast, a similar amount of noodles and fried rice have eaten in 2005 and 2025, which accounts for 6 units and 9 units respectively. Now, we're going to talk about the grammar later on, but the actual content here is very, very good. Everything is linking from the previous thing. It's all relevant. This is great for coherence and cohesion. And then the overview. Overall, it's vividly seen from the provided table. Now, as I said before, don't mention the table after the introduction. Try and avoid that. But the rest of the paragraph is pretty good. It's all in green. So hamburgers and chickens have grabbed a vast majority of consumers. This is talking about a major trend. Whereas, fried rice and noodles are least craved by citizens of Melbourne. It's talking about trends again. It's all very good. But the little bits in orange, so we spoke about the provided table. We want to avoid talking about where the data comes from after the introduction, and then also eaten in excess by them. I know what Nazarene is saying here, but a native speaker might misunderstand this. It's not the same as saying are eaten a lot. In excess, as we'll see in the next part, lexical resource, it's not the right word for this. Okay, so moving on to lexical resource. Don't forget, if you're in the chat, if you have any questions about task 1, I'm here to help. I can answer any questions that you've got. Later on, we're going to be looking at a model answer that I wrote based on this. Yeah, so if there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm just going to turn up my fan because it's getting a little bit hot in my office here. Okay, so let's move on and talk about lexical resource for this essay here. Okay, so some really good phrases here and some little errors. Oh, I should say for coherence and cohesion, I think that merits a band score 6 as well. Okay, but lexical resource. So the quantity of food, really good phrase, the quantity of. Citizen, it should be citizens. So that is just a typo, missing the plural. Try not to make those mistakes. If you can actually go through and proofread what you've written and read it to yourself aloud, you tend to catch those kind of errors. Now, the second sentence here, there's a bit of a misunderstanding. So it says there are few items on the menu, which include hamburgers. So there are a few items. So there are a few. This means not many. There are few items. Yeah. This means nothing at all, really. So there are a few, maybe 3 or 4. There are few items means hardly anything at all. It just, that one article, changes the whole meaning. Hello Naz, thanks for joining us. So that one letter changes the entire sentence. Now this word, the menu. So the reason why I've highlighted the menu in red is because we're not talking about a restaurant here. Okay, we are talking about data that came from a table. The information didn't come from a restaurant menu. So menu is not the best word here. Rather, we would say there are a few items that are popular. There are a few items that are eaten by people. This is the kind of language we want to use. So in the first sentence of the second paragraph, paragraph 1 of the body, we spoke about this phrase, the most common among people. We need to say the most common food or most common item. We need to say what the noun is, the most common thing. And we also spoke about this sentence here, person, present, time. So the issue here, although it has declined its popularity by 2 units in present time, it's just not very clear. We would have to say today or nowadays, something like this would be better. And if we move on, just a few more phrases. So this phrase, significantly saw, this is really good actually. but I think I would say that it will soar significantly. It's just a question of getting things the wrong way round. And this happens once or twice in this essay. Just make sure you know, does the verb come first, or is it the adverb, and so on. Just learn sentence structure, because it's not always the same as in your own language. I did like the phrase "is a massive amount." This is a good collocation. Massive and amount, these words naturally go together. In the body 2 paragraph, inhabitants of Melbourne, really good word, inhabitants. It's a really high level word, so this is great. A similar amount of, another great collocation. And in purple we've got another plural error, just like citizens, citizen, citizens, unit, units. And yeah, so far we've seen some good stuff and some stuff that can be improved. So for I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. It's Furu, is that right? Furu? If you go to the description of this video, you will find this document. There should be a link. If you look up in the chat, you should also be able to see a link. What I'm going to do is just share it one more time. Do that very quickly. So you should be able to find the link there. Yeah, so we're experimenting with trying to do the live stream so we can read your comments immediately. And if it's a little bit blurry, if you can't see it on mobile, we will play around with those settings for next time to try and fix it. But you should be able to follow along in the document live, or if you're watching on the replay later on, and you can see what's been highlighted. Listen to my comments again, and you can figure out what's being said. Okay. Right, so yes, moving to the overview. So overall, the problem here is no capital letter. Don't forget, punctuation is important as well. Having commas, full stops, or periods if you use American English. Capital letters when you should have them. Okay. So overall, it is vividly seen. Yes, I think this is good. I might say it is seen vividly from. Again, I think it's just swapping the words and getting the wrong order. And then the rest of that paragraph, some great collocations. Have grabbed a vast majority of, eaten in excess, craved by, in the given duration of time. That is really, really good stuff. So you can take these phrases, learn what they mean, and learn how to use them. So I think what I would give Nazarene for this is actually nearer a 5 than a 6. And it's just because there are a few basic spelling mistakes, particularly just with plurals. And I think that's a spelling mistake rather than a grammar issue. And just a few misused words, and not using a word like the most common food among people. It's just not going to push you past a 6 for this. And we're not really using a lot of very advanced vocabulary, which is not easy in task 1. But it's still a good attempt, but I think this would get closer to a 5 than a 6. Okay, so grammar. So let's go through it. So there's a few little things in red, a few errors that if Nazarene had caught these, it may have pushed the score up to 6. So nothing wrong with the introduction apart from that plural. But let's look at that first sentence of the first paragraph in the body. In 2005, hamburgers were the most common among people, which was about 40 units. it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really, just by saying which was about 40 units, we have to phrase it in a slightly different way. So firstly, I would change this to, in 2005, hamburgers were the most common fast food among people, which I might say accounted for about 40 units per year or per month, whatever it might be. This question doesn't actually give us that information. So I just think accounted for would be better than was. Although it has declined its popularity. I wouldn't say it has declined its popularity, but I might say in popularity. Declined in, because if you said it has declined its popularity, you're saying that hamburgers did something to reduce their popularity. But hamburgers are food, they can't do anything. So it doesn't make sense. So declined in popularity is what we should say. So this, again, this is the error. So 2 units in the present would be better. Okay, so it is anticipated that it will significantly soar by 12 units, really good, almost a perfect sentence, and reach 51 units in 2025. So it's because we have it will, so will soar. Okay, so will soar. So we've got, let's highlight these things. Because of will, the next verb has to be in the infinitive without to. And it also means any other verb in that sentence will also be in the infinitive without to. The bare infinitive, if you like to call it. Now, it's almost a perfect sentence. I might just change this to by. Now, there's a difference between in 2025 and by 2025. The difference is, if you say in 2025, it means it happens between January 2025 and December 2025. If you say by 2025, it means on the 1st of January 2025, it's already the case. So it's not very clear, is it in or by? I think by is just what sounds more natural to a native here. Yeah. And I like the phrase chicken holds the second position. I think this was a good phrase. Okay, so paragraph 2 has a few more things that we can improve. Okay, so although the salad was least preferred, here I would say although salad is a general idea. It's not a particular salad in the shop, the salad on the shelf. It's just salad. So salad was least preferred. We should say it was the least, because this is a superlative. The least, the most, the best, the worst, the biggest, the smallest. Okay, so the least preferred food. Again, we need to include what we're talking about. Okay, then it says it is estimated that 45 units of this can be eaten by 2025. Now, grammatically, there's nothing wrong with it, but I would say will be eaten. Here, it's talking about intention, facts. Can be eaten is about ability in the future. Okay, and the next thing I highlighted was a similar amount of noodles and fried rice have eaten in 2005 and 2025. Here, who ate the rice? Who ate the noodles? Was it the noodles and the fried rice themselves? No, somebody else. So we should say noodles and fried rice have been eaten. have been, this is the passive, okay, have been eaten 2005 and 2025. Now the issue here is if we go back and look at sentences like it is anticipated that, what we should do is change and 2025 to and will be eaten in 2025. So we are saying that we know it's a prediction. It's a missed grammar opportunity. Okay, so I am talking a lot. I think possibly my camera has died again, so I'm going to bring my face back up. Hopefully that's nicer for everyone to see me. So I'm back up. Right. So we are looking at the last part, the overview. So as I said, we wanted a capital letter there. Generally it's not too bad, just a few things to improve. So it is vividly seen from the provided table that hamburgers and chickens have grabbed a vast majority of consumers. It's just, again, grammatically it's okay, but it doesn't really make sense. I would change this to have grabbed a vast majority of the fast food market. That's what's been grabbed, the actual market of people eating fast food, not physically grabbing the consumer, although consumer was a very high level word, and also eaten in excess by them. We might say and is also eaten in maybe not in excess, eaten, it's a good high level word, but logically it's eaten a lot by consumers. That's what we should say here, okay? And finally, the last error I highlighted was whereas fried rice and noodles are the least craved by citizens. So the least, again, it's a superlative. Okay. So for grammar, again, because of a few issues here and there, I think Nazarene would get closer to a 5 than a 6. So we can see 5, 5, 6, 6. That means that overall Nazarene would get an answer between a band score between 5 and 6, 6.5, 5.5, sorry. Right, so that is the live correction today, but let's go through and look at this essay together, and I'm going to give you my process for how I wrote my model answer, which we'll look at in a moment, okay? So if we remind ourselves of the question, so if you have any questions, you can put the questions in the chat. I will do my best to answer them as we go along. So the model answer, okay? So we've got the same information, and as I said at the beginning of the video, it's a little bit confusing because here it talks about 5 major types of fast food eaten in Melbourne, units, but it doesn't tell us are the units per year or what. We can imagine it's per year because if we look here, it's in columns of year, so it must be units per year. But that's the one thing that Nazarene did not talk about. And if we look, in terms of repeating a word like eat, if you're using different versions of the verb, eat, eaten, ate, that's actually absolutely fine because you're showing your grammar muscles, as Michael likes to say. You're showing your ability to use grammar in a different way. If you can think of synonyms, for example, to eat, to consume, that is a good thing as well. But sometimes in English, there is just one word for the thing that you're talking about. So if you repeat it, it's not a problem. The problem comes when it's repeated far too much, and this is normally by lower level students who don't have a lot of vocabulary. But I think in the version that we just saw, I don't feel like eat was used too much. Basically, it wasn't overused. But yeah, if you can change it from eat to eaten to ate, that's a good thing. Am eating, all those things. It just shows your range of grammar and using different tenses. So good question. Okay, so the way I would approach this in a plan in the exam, what I need to do, if I just copy the question down, okay, copy this part of the question, and we go down. Sorry, it's blurry on the screen. So let me just give myself a bit of space. So, so the table displays trends concerning the amounts of fast food consumed in Melbourne. I've got to summarise the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So what I'm going to do is think about, in this, okay, think about what's the biggest trend, what's the biggest number, what's the smallest number, what number changes the most, what changes the least, and what is the opposite trend. So if we look, the biggest numbers, 2005, 40 hamburgers, 38 hamburgers, 51, it's always the biggest number, and fried chicken is always the second biggest number. So that is a key feature for this particular bit of data. The smallest numbers, yeah, fried rice and noodles, they are pretty much the same throughout, with one change in the present time. Okay, and oh, okay. So Naz, you're asking, in order to get band score 9, how much is task 1 worth? The way it works is basically task 2 is worth twice as much as task 1. So you would put the band score that you get for band score, the band score you get for task 1 plus 2 of the scores you get for task 2, and you divide that by 3, and that gives you the score. But you're asking to get a band score 9. If you were to get a band score 9 in writing, that would mean that you would get a band 9 in everything for task 1 and everything for task 2, because if you got anything lower than band 9, you couldn't make a band 9. It's just mathematics, you couldn't do it. So it's basically task 1 is worth half as much as task 2. That's why we say you only dedicate 20 minutes maximum to task 1. Yeah. Does that make sense to you? That it's not about getting to band score 9 from the 2 of them. It's about you're graded in these 4 criteria. Okay. Again, my little my camera's gone off, so I'm just going to put that back up. Yeah, so you're graded in these 4 criteria. In order to get band 9, you have to do everything, including what's listed in this column of band 9. To get band 9 across everything writing, you've got to do this for everything, task 1 and task 2. Most students only need to get somewhere between a 6 and a 7 in writing. Okay, it's very unlikely. I've only ever met one student, and I've been teaching IELTS for many years. I've only met one student who needed a band score 8, and they were training to be a doctor. They're going to be a surgeon, in fact. So a doctor didn't need to get band 9. a doctor needed to get an 8, and that was to be a doctor, a surgeon in the UK. So aim, for most students, aim to get a 6 in your writing overall, and aim to get 7s in your listening and your reading, and you will get 6.5. Most students need a 6.5. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking. The biggest number, hamburgers and fried chicken. The smallest number, fried rice and noodles. Most change. This is the interesting thing. It's salads. They start as the smallest number and become the third largest number. But the relative change is, it's so big there. That is a main feature. It's actually more important, I would say, than fried rice and noodles. At least that's what I thought. And the least change is the fried rice and noodles. They go from 6 to 9. That's only 3 units across the period. And opposite trends, there's nothing. Nothing decreases as far as I can see. There's one small decrease for hamburgers. It loses 2 units, but it's not very significant. So for me, this is very unusual for a task 1. You're not likely to see something this easy. Normally in task 1 writings, there's a bit more fluctuation, a bit more change. Not everything will be behaving in exactly the same way, increasing, I mean. Just in my experience of what I've seen. Okay, so the other thing, important things to remember, let me just bring that up. So it's about fast food eaten in units, and it is per year. Now I put a question mark because in Nazrin's essay they didn't talk about that, but it is per year because clearly now, looking at it again, these are columns of years. So that's how many hamburgers someone in Melbourne eats a year. 40. Is that a lot? I don't know. Okay, so what we're going to do is go through my model answer, and I'm going to explain why I wrote it the way I did. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you in case you can't see it clearly on your screen. The table gives information about the historic eating habits of 5 staple foods by Australians living in Melbourne and the predicted changes over a 20-year period. Okay, so what we've got here is the fact that it's about food, 5 different types of food in Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Historic eating habits, that's talking about 2005. The predicted changes over a 20-year period, that's talking about the present and the future. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so that's my introductory sentence. I've told the reader the context about it. I've done it in 1 sentence. Okay. Yeah. The thing is, when it comes to writing, Naz, it's very, very tricky to get a high score in writing unless you're really a high level. Generally, you can speak much better than you can write. I had the same problem. I speak a second language. I speak French. My French is pretty good, but my writing in French is really, really bad. I'm nowhere as good in writing as I am in speaking. It's not impossible, but you can do it. But the thing is, for most people, you're just doing the IELTS to get to university or to immigrate to a country. And once you get to university or to live abroad, your English is going to improve so much more quickly. So remember, this is just an English test. You should learn English, but you're going to learn a lot more when you're living in a place with that language all around you. So yeah, get your 6.5, go live your life, and forget about the IELTS. just get that 6.5 and you'll be good. Okay, so the next part, overall. So I've put my overview at the beginning of my essay. Now, if we look back at Nazrin's essay, they put it at the end. That's fine. But the reason I am putting it at the beginning is, A, if you don't write an overview, you are not going to get higher than a band score of 5 in your task achievement. Just, you cannot, because you need an overview. So I put it there so I don't forget it. I also put it there because when you're describing something, it's good to give the big picture and then fill in the details. So logically, that's the way we write and talk in English. Okay? It's basically giving the answer to the question first and then providing the details, just like we do when we speak. So this is my overview. Overall, hamburgers and fried chicken are the most popular of these types of dishes for most citizens in Melbourne and are predicted to remain so. However, salad consumption is set to have a rapid rise in popularity by 2025. So I have included the idea that hamburgers and fried chicken are the most popular type of food. I've included the idea that this is a prediction for what's going to happen in 2025, and I've included the main feature that salad has a rapid increase in popularity, meaning that people eat it more and more by 2025. So for the rest of my essay, what I need to do is to give the evidence that shows my overview to be true. I don't have to give my opinion because we don't do that in task 1. I just need to give the facts that say this is true. So let's see if I did it. By far the most consumed type of junk food is hamburgers, which was consumed on average 40 times a year in 2005, a trend which has only changed by 2 units per annum in the present. So I'm describing the fact that they ate 40 units in 2005 and now it's only 38. Fried chicken followed a similar trend in terms of popularity in 2005 as burgers, but today is consumed 37 times per year compared to the 35 patty-filled buns eaten on average by Melburnians. Okay, some fancy writing here. So this part in green followed a similar trend. I'm referencing what I've said before, the idea that a lot of hamburgers were eaten followed a similar trend. And I've also been a little bit, let's say, colourful, perhaps inventive with my vocabulary, because I'm a native speaker. So I saw the word burgers here. I didn't want to say burgers again and hamburgers, so I chose to say patty-filled buns. Now, is this a word that is a phrase that is used all the time? No. A burger patty is the meat inside. A bun is the hamburger bun. So because I'm a native, I'm able to do this, to come up with a phrase that makes sense. And the reason why I will get credit for a phrase that isn't an idiom or doesn't exist normally is because I've showed the reader through my writing I am a high level student. They're going to trust me. Whatever I write, they're like, okay, that must be correct. So if you can't find patty-filled buns on Google, it's because I made it up. It may or may not exist as a phrase. It may be in some advertising I heard. And the other thing is Melburnians. This is the phrase for people who come from Melbourne. So I'm from London in the UK. I'm a Londoner. Michael is originally from Virginia in the United States. He's a Virginian. It's definitely not, yeah, he's a Virginian. That's it. He also lived in Washington, D.C. I don't know what they call people from Washington, D.C. apart from politicians. I don't know. Okay, moving on. These types of food are predicted to be eaten 11 and 10 times more regularly within 4 years compared to over 15 years ago. So the major thing here is, I've mentioned again, it's a prediction. In purple, I'm referring to the idea it's predicted numbers. And I've just used a fancy phrase, 11 and 10 times more regularly within 4 years compared to over 15 years ago. This is referring to the fact that it's 40, 51, that's 11, 35, 45, that's 10 times, comparing 2005 and 2025. So because I'm a native speaker, I'm able to do that. But if you practice, you can find inventive ways to talk about data, which is a way to avoid repeating yourself. Hopefully what you will do is come and steal my answer and adapt it for yourself. If you find a nice sentence that you like, learn how to use it and use it for a different essay. And then my final paragraph, which I will, let's try and get this on the, can I get this on? Yeah, the same page. So, although fried rice and noodles are both expected to grow in popularity between 2005 and 2025, though at a much lower level of consumption to the other dishes, salad has exploded into the takeaway market. So here I am referring to fried rice and noodles, referring to the fact that it's a predicted growth, but I'm mentioning the fact that salad is the major feature because it became so consumed over the period, exploded into the takeaway market. Takeaway, another way to refer to fast food. Now, grammatically, something interesting that I did here was I said, so this part, although fried rice and noodles are both expected to grow in popularity between 2005 and 2025, that's the first part of this contrasting statement. The second part is this: salad has exploded into the takeaway market. So I can take away this part and it still makes sense. But what I've done is I've included another contrasting statement within the first one. I didn't even realize I was doing this, but again, if you study a lot, if you read a lot, you can learn how to do this. So again, my camera keeps turning itself off. I'm sure you want to see my lovely face. Okay, okay, so there should be yeah. So though at a much lower level of consumption to the other dishes. Now it's suggesting I say compared to, but as a native I would say consumption to. So sometimes natives, they omit phrases, but because I've proved that I'm a high level student throughout, I probably wouldn't be penalised for that. Anyway, this is an interesting sentence because of what I did. Anyway, this healthy option was not a favourite among this group of Australians. This group of Australians. Yeah, so yeah, Naz, the reason why is because the reason why it can have although but is because I've got two clauses, two parts of the contrasting statement, and that makes sense. And this is not the contrasting part for although. The part that says though at a much lower rate, it's not contrasting the idea in the first one. It's actually adding information. It's almost working like a relative clause when we say which or who. So that's why it's such an interesting sentence. And it's just, if you practice a lot, it's the kind of thing you will start to do naturally. I didn't even think about that when I wrote it. It just came out naturally because I am a native speaker, obviously. But you can practice and you can learn to do this. This healthy option was not a favourite among this group of Australians at the beginning of the century, 2005, but has almost overtaken more popular fast food options in terms of units consumed per year. Salads will be eaten in 2025 according to predictions, don't forget that, 8 times more regularly than the 5 dishes eaten per year back in 2005. Okay, so overall the key thing that I've done here is I've stated that I'm talking partly about predicted data, and I haven't forgotten to talk about that all the way through. I also have a clear overview where I say hamburgers and fried chicken were the most popular, but salad quickly became popular, and I explored that in my first paragraph and the other idea in the second paragraph. So this would get a high mark. Would it get a band 9? Maybe not, because as we saw, there was 1 or 2 little errors here, which goes to show that even native speakers don't automatically get band 9s, because to get band 9 you've got to be writing at a very, very high level, but most of you don't need to. You just need to get a 6 or 6.5 in writing. Okay, so just to leave you with a few ideas. Okay, so in this document we've got some sentence frames, some example sentences that you can steal and adapt. Okay, so let's go through what I mean by that. So the sentence from my essay was, by far the most consumed type of junk food is hamburgers, which was consumed on average 40 times a year in 2005. Okay. So here, these sentence frames, by far the most is which shouldn't be capitalized. So, for example, by far the most visited country was France, which saw 10,000 visitors in May. By far the most used transport system is Taipei's MRT, which serves 1 million riders per year. By far the least popular job in 2000 was a journalist, which only had 1 applicant in total. So you can see how we take the basic frame of this sentence and we adapt it. We change most consumed type of junk food to visited country, or used transport system, or popular job in 2000. Okay, let's look at another example. So I'm just going to move this to the next page. So salads will be eaten in 2025 according to predictions 8 times more regularly than the 5 dishes eaten per year back in 2000. So here we can adapt it a little bit more to our needs, but it's will be eaten in 2025 according to predictions times more regularly than eaten but in 2005. Michael loves to do the when there's gaps, and I've started to do it as well. It's a bit weird, but it works. So let's look at some examples of how I adapted this sentence frame. Oil will be used in 2025 according to predictions 3 times more regularly than 100 units used per month in 2005. So I don't really want this in brackets. Don't really want this in brackets either. So oil will be used in 2025 according to predictions 3 times more regularly than 100 units used per month in 2005. Okay. So maybe actually I should say the 100 units. So this means that in 2025, how many units of oil will be used? 3 times 100, 300 units. Electric cars will be bought in 2025, according to predictions, 50 times more. Okay, I will come to that in just a second, your question, Farouj. Just a sec. So, electric cars will be bought in 2025, according to predictions, 50 times more regularly than similar cars bought per week in 2005. Cricket will be played in 2150, according to predictions, 1,000 times less regularly than other sports participated in per day in 2000. What a shame. So yeah, let's go back up to that sentence. Now, I don't want to confuse you too much with this, because as I said, this sentence, it just came to me. And the reason it works is because we've got a contrasting statement which I've added another, what's called a caveat. So like a negative point or a thing to remember that's not positive. So how could we rephrase this in a different way? Let's have a go. So let's look at a different example to see, can I reproduce it? So although it's a, okay, let's say, for example, although English is widely spoken around the world, though not in the same numbers as Chinese, most people still hate Americans. Okay, that's the only sentence I could think of. So it's the same idea. If I was to take that away, although English is widely spoken around the world, most people still hate Americans. I'm British, by the way. This works as a contrasting sentence. English is spoken by a lot of people from around the world. On the other hand, people still hate Americans, and that's understandable. What I'm doing with that extra sentence is almost adding this contrasting idea, though not in the same numbers as Chinese, the language Chinese. This is quite a high level sentence, and if I'd thought about it better, I may not have used it because I'm just worried it's going to confuse you. What I would say is, for most people, stick to this. Just simple contrasting statements. If you want to practice what I've got here, try and write it exactly the same as I did. Although A and the next part B. And the extra thing is you're also adding another sort of contrast of A. To be honest, this is very high level and I'm just worried it's going to confuse you. So let's stick to that. Does that answer your question, Farouj? Hopefully I haven't confused you too much. But that is how we would use it as another example. Okay, so just to end, we've got one more sentence frame which I think is more useful. So, however, salad consumption is set to have a rapid rise in popularity by 2025. The sentence frame, however, consumption is set to have a rapid rise in by 2025. You'll notice that the things in brackets, we can change these words. Also, rapid rise, we can change that as well. The idea is to get the structure right and learn how to adapt it for different situations. Again, my camera has disappeared. Okay, so these are some examples. However, smoothie consumption is set to have a rapid rise in popularity by 2025. A simple way to change it. However, public transport usage is set to have a rapid rise in convenience by the summer. Another way to adapt it. However, data storage costs are set to have a rapid decline in pricing by next year. So here we can change the verb to be is, are, obviously, and instead of rapid rise, rapid decline, huge growth, swift decline. You can use any phrase you want for going up or down, but the general structure stays the same. So if you learn how to use sentence frames like this, you can really improve your writing very, very swiftly. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this live stream. But if there are any questions, anything that I didn't explain clearly, or anything you would like to know. Okay, what is the meaning of the phrase, the grass is always greener on the other side? So these idioms, okay, so the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Okay. So often we have these long idioms, and over time they get shortened. The grass is always greener on the other side, and they get shortened again. The grass is always greener, and maybe at some point it will just be the grass. Maybe not. But what does it mean? It means that when you're in a situation where perhaps things aren't going so well for you in your life, you look at another situation and you imagine that your life would be better if you had that job, or you were with that wife or husband, or you had that boyfriend or girlfriend, or you lived in that country. You imagine your life would be much improved if you could change the situation to the situation you see or imagine. But when you actually get to that place, you realize that life isn't as good. Or, you know, you see your neighbor who has a good car, maybe a better job, a more beautiful wife, but then you go and talk to them and they're stressed out, they don't get on well with their spouse, their car keeps breaking down. So the idea of the grass is always greener, it means don't imagine that you are in a bad situation and everyone else is a much better situation. Okay, so it's normally said to someone who's complaining. You know, they go, oh, I wish that I had this degree. You know, I wish I had that job at Google. And your friend says, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side, meaning if you do get that job at Google, you may not have as good a time as you thought. Does that answer your question, Naz? Is that clearer? There's also another good idiom. Be careful what you wish for. It's kind of similar to the grass is always greener. Okay, be careful what you wish for means sometimes you really desire change, and you think everything's going to be better, and then it happens to you and actually things don't turn out so well. Yeah, so for example, a lot of people maybe 2 years ago were saying, oh, I wish I had more time at home, all that kind of thing. And now, unfortunately, with what's happening around the world, a lot of us are stuck at home for long periods and we don't actually enjoy it. We would like to go outside. So be careful what you wish for means, you know, and it's another one of these phrases, be careful of what you wish for, because it might just come true. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us. So what we're going to do this week is Michael and I, we're changing things up a little bit, and oh, I've disappeared. So I will be doing some evening live streams just like this one. starting at 7 p.m. Taipei time, which I believe is about 2.5 hours in front of India that time, and it's something like 3 or 4 hours in front of about sort of the Middle East time, about 7 hours in front of UK time. It's GMT plus 8. So at the moment it's 8:20 in the evening where I am. So figure out where you are, what time it is, and we started about an hour ago. So I will be doing Wednesday and Friday in the evening, and Michael will be doing 2 p.m. Taipei time, which will be roughly about 11:30 in India, and so on. He will be doing a live stream tomorrow at 2, and on Thursday at 2 p.m. and on Saturday at 2 p.m. So this week we have 6 live streams. Yeah, so if you would like to join us for any of those, feel free, and we will see you in a live stream very soon. Don't forget, you can great, you're from Iran. What time is it in Iran right now? But you can join us any of those live streams. We're trying to make as many times as possible available to you, so you can send us your emails. Remember, if you want to send an essay to be corrected for free, it's corrections@IELTSGrind.com. You should be able to see it above my head on the screen. And if you would like to send a recording of you answering questions for us to give you some feedback about your speaking, send us a link to your video or your audio to corrections@IELTSGrind.com. You can record yourself on your phone, you can upload it to YouTube. You don't have to make it a live video, just one that you can share, also one that can share with us. We will watch it and we'll give you some feedback. And if you're brave, you can have it on the live stream and we can talk about it together. Remember, the more you practice, the better you get. The more mistakes you make, the more we can correct and you learn from your mistakes. So thanks very much for watching, and I will see you on Wednesday. Michael will be back in a few hours. Bye-bye.